Deborah, stream is live now. Michael is your co-host and your host again.
Olive oil. Hi, Mary Lou.
Hi, how are you? Long time no see.
Yeah, hey, you got it back. Your name's correct. There you go.
I still haven't gotten an email though. I'm trying to figure out how to check for scam on my computer.
Check the spam. Check in your email under junk. It might say junk.
Okay, because I did that on my phone and it wasn't showing anything. So I don't know if it would be the same on my computer.
Well, I do know that help at Get Set Up will really help you with that, even to find where it might be. So
Okay, where would I have to go? Is there a phone number or a?
No, there is an 800 number right on the website, but you can just email help@getsetup.io and they will get back to you right away.
Yeah.
Or you can go, there's lots of places on the website and lots of places to do a live chat or just ask for help.
Okay.
You try to
it's kind of frustrating. I'm not getting my emails.
Well, yeah, you need to get those. So they'll really be helpful to get that.
Yeah.
Because you have to have those. What's the point?
Want those recipes?
Yeah, for sure. There, and Kevin just put it in the chat.
Oh.
He put the email address in there.
Oh, okay.
Make sure you have it correctly.
Let me hit on chat. Let me see what chat. There's chat.
Find chat down there at the bottom.
Okay. So Ed Get Set Up. Okay. Okay. Oops. All right. Okay. I'll check that later. Yeah, because I kind of looked. I checked on my my computer and I checked on my phone and nothing. So I don't know why. Because I took a class on the journaling on Saturday, and she had a lot of really nice, good ideas and everything. And I was kind of looking forward to the email. I never got it, so I don't know. Of course,
yes. Well, we have to get that squared away for you. Let me know. And if you don't get, for some reason that doesn't work for you, let me know and I'll hand carry it through. But I think that help is this help email will be very responsive because that's who I would go to anyway. That was the case. Hi, Deanna.
Hello.
Yeah, I know they've got the right email because if they didn't, I wouldn't be able to, get into these, these classes. So
well, right, exactly.
Yeah, so.
Wow, I'm expecting a few more people. Here come a few. Okay, Karen. Those are beautiful. I thought I saw somebody in the background with flowers. Are they from where are they from? Your garden?
No, unfortunately not.
Kroger's.
They are beautiful. Who did something?
They have pretty flowers there. Our anniversary is tomorrow, 48th anniversary. So.
Oh my gosh. Well, congratulations. That's wonderful. Oh.
That was a surprise. I didn't expect anything like that. So yeah, they're really pretty. They have pretty flowers over there, usually bouquets and stuff. So
gorgeous. Hey, Vicky. Where have I seen you before?
Yeah, it's a familiar face too.
I was a little late. Just take the dog out. There you
Hi,
hear it.
Veronica. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. There may be some other folks joining us, but we'll start up because we've got a lot to talk about today. Soups. And you guys will have to keep me awake after I ate all of that strawberry stuff from the last class.
It looks so good. I really had a craving for strawberries.
Oh my gosh, the strawberry quesadilla was really wonderful.
Yeah, it looked really good.
It was very good, and I ate the bruschetta, and then I wanted to take a nap. Hi, Veronica. But here we are. Now we're going to talk about soup, and that'll be fun too. So welcome to you all, and I'll share my screen. We'll get going. Oh, I am sharing my screen. Whoopsie. There I am. Creamed and blended soups. So is there anybody who's new with me? Is this their first class with me? Anybody?
I'm new.
You are new. Okay, Veronica, I'm really glad to see you. I'm glad you joined. And I hope this will be the first of many classes. Thank you. My name's Deb Livingston, and I am your guide. I'm from the East Coast. I live in York, Pennsylvania. Where are you from? Veronica. I can't hear you. You want to unmute yourself?
Yes, I'm in Maryland, right down the road.
Oh, you're my neighbor. Okay. And Vicky's from Harrisburg area. So we're all in a close proximity here. So my background is in business, and that has been always training and development and leadership, coaching, and so on. And I've always loved to cook and to garden and cook with whole foods. So this is really fun for me to be able to do this with Get Set Up, and then to meet all of you. It's been great to meet so many new people and to get this connection over good food. And we do really learn from each other. We really have this give and take about what's going on with our recipes and our food and what we enjoy. So ideally, if you can, it's great if you can join by camera. So it feels like you're in my kitchen. That's what I would really like. I want you to feel like you're just here in my kitchen and we're going to have a cup of coffee. In fact, I think I'm going to introduce that as a standard, a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. Anyway, I welcome you to unmute yourself anytime to have conversation or use the chat box if you have questions. We have Michael with us today. Hey, Michael. And Michael is our teaching support or technical support. If you have any kind of problems with your devices or volume or mic, anything like that, he's here to help with that. He's also here to track me down or kind of get me if I don't answer questions. So he'll be monitoring the chat and putting some things in the chat box along the way too. But I'll try to remember to stop and take questions along the way. You can request a recording from this class after the class at help@getsetup.io. That's your Help Central, that email address if you have any issues. And we are live streaming this class today. So I'll just say hi to those of you who are out there in live stream land and invite you to come and join us in a real face-to-face kind of class here at some point. We have a lot of fun. We had a great time in the last class, I think. Some good laughs. And so join us in that way. Otherwise, enjoy the show. And anyway, I guess that's all I have to say about that. Lastly, I will say, though, that we do share lots of product information, websites. I have recipes I share with you, and the owners of those websites and I don't have any kind of financial connection or anything like that, nor does Get Set Up. So just want to mention that. So what brought you today? What about cream and blended soups made you say, I think I'll sign up for that?
I always said in my retirement, I wanted to make soup, and I haven't done that a whole lot. So this is I haven't got to take your other soup class yet either, but I hope to.
Okay. So you have not taken the one that is soups from scratch.
No, I want to do that.
Okay, so soups from scratch is maybe the first one in the series about laying a flavor foundation for your soup. And I'll show you today how I'm going to use what I made from that class or the recipe that I have in that class to make one of our soups today. Anyone else think of anything specific that you decided to join this class because of?
Yeah, my soups never really come out as creamy as I'd like them to. They're kind of, I won't say watery, but just not the way I'd like them. The texture isn't exactly right.
Isn't quite the way you want it. Okay. Yeah, so that can happen if you're well, I guess for a lot of reasons. Do you use a roux in the soups that you make? The cream soups?
Not, well, not really. I should probably, kind of was experimenting with a couple of the recipes and they just didn't really come. I mean, they tasted good. They were okay, but they just weren't, quite as creamy as I would
You
have
didn't
liked.
get as creamy as you wanted. Is it creamy or is it thick?
Neither.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see. We'll experiment with a few and see what comes up. What do you think, Veronica? I see you smiling over there.
I just I look at V8 juice, and I've been eating a lot of produce, and I was trying to figure out why can't I make my own. I'm looking at the ingredients in V8, and I'm like, I should be able to do my tomatoes and everything else and just blend them together. And when I saw this class, I said, oh, wow, maybe this is my answer.
Well, I don't know about making a V8 juice, but that's not a bad idea. I've actually been working on a juicing class. So one of these days, maybe we'll have that. But yeah, you can at least see some of the tools here that we use. And there are recipes out there for making your own V8 for sure. It's a great idea. Then you can control what goes into those juices and you can lower the amount of sodium because they really have a lot of sodium in them. So that's a good idea. Okay, so we'll talk about what a cream soup is. I mean, it's not complicated or anything, but the difference between a creamed soup and a pureed or a blended soup. And then we'll just make a couple and experiment and see what we think. And I'll be sending you a load of recipes. We're not going to make all of them today, obviously, but I am going to share a few with you and make them and okay. Michael, I just wanted to say, I think we can let Karen into the room up there. If
all right, done that.
Thank you. Okay, so cream soup, it can be pureed or it doesn't have to. It simply means that it's something that's been thickened with a roux, that is flour mixed with a fat to make a paste that when you add liquid will create a creamy broth. And so you thicken with a roux and use milk or cream in the soup, and that's a cream soup, just to get our definitions down. Whereas a pureed soup, which can look creamy, may or may not have cream in it. So it's usually vegetables that are simmered in either stock or water and then pureed using a blender or an immersion blender. How many of you use an immersion blender? Anybody use an immersion blender? Know what they look like? It's always something I don't get out before the class. Here's my immersion blender. So I'm going to remind myself to stop the share when we really want to be up close. So when you're using non-starchy vegetables in a pureed soup, you probably are going to want to add something that does have a little bit of starch to it. So it might include something like potatoes or rice. So for instance, Mary Lou, if you're running up against some soups that just are thin all the time, are you using a non-starchy vegetable? And could it benefit by having something in it like some rice that ends up getting pureed in with it or potato to help make it a little thicker? And you can have purees that do contain dairy or do not. And I like to say this when I show this picture. First of all, there's two things about this picture. That is one smooth soup. That's one smooth pureed carrot soup, isn't it? And there's a couple of tricks to that. One is that you can puree it for a while. You need to let it go in the blender for a while for it to get pureed. And then depending upon what kind of soup and what kind of vegetable, if you still have chunks in there, it's time to use this guy. So use your strainer to strain your soup. And we're going to use that today. So I want to show you this soup. I honestly love this soup, but I couldn't bear to make it one more time. I made it so much, I'm kind of off of it now. I have to wait a while, but you need to make this. It's delicious if you like mushroom soup. This is cream of mushroom, and this will now be my go-to. It will replace the condensed cream of mushroom soup in recipes and so on. It's just delicious. And you can use wild mushrooms in this as well. So mix it up. This is just calling for brown, like a brown portobello. A lot of soups start this very same way, oil and then some onions until they're translucent. Then add your garlic and now your mushrooms. I think that was thyme. Thyme is really good in mushroom soup. A little bit of white wine. I made red wine with red wine the last time, which was okay. I kind of think I prefer the white. Here we go with the flour. Now, not the same way. Didn't make the roux the same way, but used flour as a thickener, but not adding the salt until later. So I'll turn off that music. Yeah, so they use, she uses bouillon cube, but you can use something like Better Than Bouillon. Have you ever used Better Than Bouillon? Do you know what that is? Pretty thick and creamy. Oh my gosh. Okay, maybe I will have to make that again soon. That is so delicious. So I just wanted to say this about that soup. If you noticed when she put the flour in on the mushrooms, it was after there was the wine in there and there was some liquid, but she was letting that liquid get more dry, because if you put the flour in when there's too much liquid, you're going to get lumps in the flour, and that's a hassle. So wait until it gets a little bit on the dry side. So this is Better Than Bouillon.
Deb?
Yes.
I'm getting something up on my screen now, and it's showing the cream, it says cream of mushroom, and then it's something about a video.link playback.
Yeah, oh. that was my link for the soup.
Okay,
I just turned the video.
Where'd that come from?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
So this is Better Than Bouillon. In this recipe, it called for, I can't remember if it was chicken. I think it was beef bouillon that it called for. And a lot of times the beef bouillon has a lot of undesirable ingredients in it, monosodium glutamate, perhaps, certainly a lot of sodium. This has sodium too, but it's organic. It has as its first ingredient roasted chicken, and then it does have maltodextrin, salt, chicken stock, cane sugar, food starch, yeast extract, onion powder, garlic powder, turmeric, and natural flavor. So it's relatively good for a processed kind of food. And I think they're better than, and it's wet, so you can't use it. You have to convert it over. And I just do it to taste. It adds a richer taste to the broth. So that's one. And how does that look compared to how you've made your soups, your cream soups? Did you see anything here that struck you in this soup? A technique or anything like that? Okay.
It looked like you want to wait till the end to do a lot of your seasoning.
Yes, yes. So you can add, now she added all along the way, but then you do your final seasoning at the end, taste it, add a little more, tweak it. You know, soups, I think across the board really benefit from having cooks dipping their spoon in and tasting and adjusting all the way along and doing what you like. You know, if you don't like thyme, use parsley or some herb that you do like and try it out that way. I've done this already when I've made a full batch of something and I wasn't sure whether I liked a particular piece of it, part of it, whether I would just take a ladle full out and put it in a separate little pan and do it the way I think I might like it and see what I thought. That way I'm not messing up the whole pot. So this is one that I am going to make for us today. And this is one of my husband's favorites, chipotle corn soup. So it can be a little spicy, but you can control that completely. How many of you have ever used these chipotle peppers in adobo sauce? Have you ever used those? Yeah. Anybody else? So what do you find, Vicki, when you use these peppers? Do you use a whole can of them?
Not usually. And then you don't know what to do with what's left. You have to come up with something.
Amen. So here we go. Now I have it somewhere. Yeah. Now those chipotle peppers out of the can have been in my freezer wrapped up for a couple of years, quite honestly, and they're still fine. But they're in sauce, and I'm not even going to use, I'm only using maybe a half teaspoon of that whole thing. So it doesn't take much, and you need to use it with caution, but it does add a lot of flavor. They are very good, and there's not anything that's really compares. You could do a smoked paprika and a hot pepper, but these are very good, and they do freeze for a long time. Just wrap them separately. So I'm going to stop my share and walk through this recipe. If you want to pin me on the front or get me on the big screen there, that would be great. And we'll take a look at what we've got. The first thing I want to show you, oh no, well, yes, I do want to show you this because I need the pot. So today I got up and I said, I'm going to make that that corn soup, but I think I might make an asparagus soup too. And while I'm at it, I think I need to clean out the freezer, and I have all those vegetable scraps in there, and I'm going to make some vegetable stock, which is going to go as part of my asparagus soup. So I need a bowl. So what I did with this today was I just put it on this morning and left it go for a few hours. Smelled really good in the kitchen. I didn't have to really worry about proportions too much. I had the scraps in my freezer, and to that I added a stem of celery and 1 carrot because I already had, and I had a lot of onion shells, so I didn't add additional onion. And I think my bowl's too small. That's good enough. You see that? It's a nice, rich vegetable broth. So we make that. We have that recipe in the Soups from Scratch class. Now, this corn soup starts with a couple of tablespoons of melted butter, to which I am going to add the adobo pepper and saute. So let me get that on the ball. That's 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. And this calls for 8 ears of corn cut off the cob. But there's no corn in season around here. So we weren't doing that. And I bought organic corn from Whole Foods, frozen corn. It works beautifully. But if you were using fresh corn, know this, that 8 ears of corn yields about 6 cups of corn. Every ear of corn is about 3/4 of a cup of corn. So what I'm doing here is, what I have in here is 6 cups of corn. And I'm going to take a 1/4 cup out. I think that's what I need, a 1/4 cup, 1/2 cup of that out, because that's going to go in at the very end. This is a completely smooth soup except for that 1/2 cup of kernels that we're going to fold in at the end. And that's actually a lot. That's actually a lot. So, all right. So I'm going to set this aside for the asparagus soup later. If we get to that, we'll see. And I'm going to cut up this adobo pepper. So it is just a messy little thing.
How did you say you froze them?
I just wrapped it up in saran wrap. Each one, I tried to break them out into the individual pepper because you never use much of one. In fact, you could probably do them by the 1/2 pepper. And so I rolled them up individually and then I froze them, put them in a plastic bag. So, and then you retain some of the sauce there too. I'll probably just throw that away now. But you can see I'm not using very much of it. So this is going to just saute for a little tiny bit. And then I'm going to add the onions in. Whew. Okay, that's really, you have to be careful. Don't put your nose over the pan. Very strong. So this was 6 scallions, and I reserved 1/3. This is going to be garnished. 2/3 is going into the pot. And that's going to just take a couple of minutes till the onions start to soften. I'm going to put a little salt in there, 1/2 teaspoon. A little bit of pepper, just freshly ground. Smells good already, and there's hardly anything in there. So what comes next is the corn, and I'll put the corn in here, saute it around, just stir it around, and then I'm going to add equal parts of milk and water. So 1½ cups of milk, 1½ cups of water. I don't want to rush that too much. I just bought, have you ever bought cream line milk? Harrisburg Dairies has the cream line milk. So does this other dairy that I got from Ohio. Cream line milk has the cream coming up to the top. It's not homogenized, so they don't mix all that through. Reminds me of the old days when my grandmother used to go to her cousin's farm and get the milk from the, from the farm. And then that top part became our ice cream. Okay, adding the corn. And a little more salt.
Deb, do you use whole milk pretty much in your soup?
I do. I really do. Yeah, for as much as I use, I certainly do. I wasn't a real milk fan when I was a kid. I didn't like it at all. But, and I still don't really drink it, but I do make it for cooking. And yeah. How about you? What do you use?
Well, I drink 1%, but if I'm going to make something that needs a little bit more consistency, then I probably would want to get whole.
Yes. And you bring up a good point. So this is, yes, whole milk does do that. Although you'll get a nice consistency in this soup, a nice thickness anyway, because you're going to get the starch from the corn. So you can use this. You can use a lower fat percentage of milk. You can use coconut milk. You can use oat milk. You can use almond milk. If you like any of those milks, they all work. Okay, so a little bit more. Check my. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is add the milk, and I'm going to add the water, and then we're going to let this just come to a little bit of a boil, and then turn it back and let it simmer for a while. So I'm going to crank that up and see where we go with that. All right. So I am going to get rid of this little pepper and carefully wash off my board, because I know what will happen if I don't. And then we'll move on to this asparagus soup so you can see what's going to happen there. Go through a lot of hand towels. Okay. So I need to check my recipe here. Okay. I was just checking to see how large a pot I need. I usually use this one for a lot of my soups. So I'm going to use one this size. It's probably going to get full, but I'm going to give it a try. So this is a vegan chilled asparagus soup. And it has in it, and I'm not going to switch off. I'll just explain this to you and send you the recipe. But it has in it a white onion, 1.5 pounds of asparagus. I didn't have 1.5 pounds, so I'm going to slightly drop the other ingredients down a little bit, but it calls for 1.5 pounds of asparagus, a 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt, 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, 2 cups of this vegetable stock that I made, and 4 ounces of baby spinach. So I went out today. This isn't baby spinach, but it doesn't get any fresher than this. I went out and pulled spinach from my garden today. So my spinach is all starting to bolt because it's so hot outside that I wanted to use it as well, use it as fast as I could. So this is a spinach asparagus soup. And I haven't tried this one before. So this is another one of those live on TV. You never know how it's going to be. And what we're going to do is heat some olive oil in this pan. A California olive oil, California Ranch, about 2 tablespoons. and saute the onions as soon as that gets hot. Now my corn soup is looking good. It's all that butter is floating to the top. It looks nice and yellow and starting to boil, or it will be shortly. So what we do with this recipe after it's done boiling and after it's done simmering is put it over the sieve over a bowl and let the soup drip through it. And it is a little difficult sometimes. It's you've got to kind of smash it around and really push it through so that you're only leaving the corn shells behind. So it takes a few minutes. Hope I can get that done before we have to wrap up. It's only so much you can do in an hour. So what's for supper tonight? Or dinner, whatever do you call it? Supper or dinner? Anybody?
Got to be something with strawberries for me.
Yes. What would that
A
be?
strawberry salad, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. If you got the email, I sent a strawberry spinach kiwi salad.
Wow.
Ooh, that would be good.
Looks really good. Yeah.
I'm
Anybody
doing
else?
tilapia.
Hmm?
I'm going to make tilapia.
Oh, good. How do you make that then, Karen?
I think I'm going to use one of your tips and put the lemon on the bottom of the pan and put the fish on top and season it and probably broil it.
Mm.
Something simple, unless you have
Yes.
recommendations.
That sounds delicious. Well, I made some flounder. That sounds very good. And it just reminds me that I ate flounder. I had a flounder thing going on lately, and I mixed up some breadcrumbs with butter and Parmesan cheese the other day and just sprinkled that on top of the flounder that already I had put some of the other butter on. And it just got that little bit of crunch, a little bit of cheese. And then I had leftover flounder, and I sprinkled that with Jamaican jerk seasoning. And that was very good too.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that was tasty. But your way sounds really good.
We'll see.
Yeah. Such a nice light fish.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Whoa. Okay. My soup is boiling now. So I think it's safe to say we can simmer it at this point. See what happens. One of these days I'll have a camera over here so that you can see under my range hood. Now this looks good enough to put into the pot. And that was just sliced onions. It doesn't really matter because we're going to be pureeing all of this. You don't have to make your dices. So don't make extra work for yourself. And while we're waiting for some things to cook, I will share my screen again and just go over a couple of other recipes that I'll be sharing with you. So lots of people say, oh, I really like cream of broccoli soup. And so many people say they enjoy the cream of broccoli soup that they get at Panera Bread. This isn't necessarily Panera Bread's recipe, but I think it's pretty good. And what I like about it is that it uses smoked Gouda as the cheese. And that changes things up a little bit. So you might want to try that. It also uses the blender. So take a quick glance at that. And I had to laugh because this recipe, you know, recipes are all just suggestions anyway, but this says 1.5 pounds of broccoli crowns. Well, honestly, this is the place to use broccoli stems. If you have stems from your broccoli, use your stems. And then not the hard part that's very fibrous, but all the other parts. Don't just use the florets or the crowns. So use your stems too. You can peel them, that helps. And you are going to keep some of those florets aside, just like we did with the corn, and coarsely chop up the rest of the broccoli and do what we did here with this soup. Saute the onion in some oil or butter, and then add some garlic, and then add some flour and some smoked paprika. I think we're using smoked here. Yeah, smoked paprika, because we're also using that smoked cheese. So we're having a more smoky flavored broccoli soup here. Just something a little different. Like a lot of flavor in my soups, and sometimes these pureed soups can seem kind of boring to me. So I wanted to mention that on that cream of carrot soup that we looked at. I said there were two things, and I was talking about it being pureed and being really creamy. Then I didn't mention the second thing, and the second thing was that it just looks so boring. So in this soup, you have some rye croutons that you're going to make, rye bread croutons. You can make any type you like. This is a suggestion, but garnish on a soup that is creamed is really a good thing. So you're going to see that with the asparagus, the cream of asparagus, you're keeping out some of the asparagus tips that you can put on that later before you puree everything else. So let me see. I feel like a juggler. I'm looking at a corn soup and an asparagus soup and a cream of broccoli soup. So I'm glad you can see the recipe there. You can look it over while I'm stirring. So we're having tilapia. We're having something with strawberries. What else are we having for dinner tonight? Whose house am I coming to? So with the broccoli soup, we're doing essentially the same thing we're doing with the corn. We're making those croutons. This says to do them in a large skillet where you're just tossing them with some oil and then putting them in the skillet. I put mine in the oven on a piece of parchment paper on a pan. Then I don't have to stir them around. I don't have to wash that pan. I can just get rid of the parchment paper. And then I'm going to puree that soup in the blender just as we're going to do the corn soup. You could use an immersion blender. Immersion blenders, I find, well, maybe you can tell me, how do you use your immersion blender? Do you use your immersion blender? I'm seeing a no.
I do with soup.
How in soup? So
Yeah.
Do you use it to make a soup totally creamy?
No, partially.
Yes, me too.
Yeah.
It's really time consuming to try to get your whole batch of soup really creamy if that's what you want, isn't it?
Yes.
So that's why I use this. But I have another soup recipe you're going to get that we're not going to get to. That is a corn soup as well. I'll show you the picture.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's this Southwestern corn chowder.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, it's a lot chunkier, but you are getting in there with your immersion blender and just giving a couple of quick blends so that you get creaminess from your soup,
Right.
but you keep it really chunky. So
How do you keep the blender from really splattering? I try very carefully when I'm moving it around, but it always tends to kind of,
Yeah,
splatter a little
I
bit.
know that is a problem, isn't it? Well, you definitely have to keep it below the
keep it
surface
down.
of the
Yeah.
soup. And then you don't have to, if you can just hold it kind of still, you don't have to move it around like this. You can just move it very slowly and let it do its work. It draws things under it. So if you hold it a little bit still, you might have a better chance with it. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, maybe that's what my problem is. I move it around too much.
Well, we think we're going to hurry it up, and it doesn't really do that. Okay, adding the asparagus now. Boy, I love asparagus. And it's getting to the end of it now. I'm going to miss it. All right, let me see what else I need to be doing there. Little salt and pepper, and I'm doing this for about 4 or 5 minutes. Pepper. Has anybody found a really great spice rack they like? Just curious. I'm in the market.
The house I moved into had one of those pull-out drawers, but I was so proud of myself because I actually made labels to put on the top of the spices so that, because otherwise you had to pull out so many to figure out what they were.
Yes, yes. I have these. My husband made these. Can you see? And they're in here. It's getting harder for me to get down there with my knees to see what's down there. So I want something up. All right, we'll let that go just for a minute while we finish up the soups here. This is the other soup that I had that I'll send to you on carrot ginger soup. So this is one that can get, if you puree it, it doesn't get completely creamy. If you want it to be completely creamy, you need to strain it. But it's very flavorful. But here we go with another garnish. So a little bit of crema. This is supposed to be sour cream, but honestly, a dollop of sour cream goes sinking down in. You need something lighter. But I would just just sprinkle some herbs on top would be nice. Yeah, I mean, that would be good. And, I thought I had a link there, ladies, but I do not. So I can't show you that recipe now, but I will send it to you. Just double check. Carrot ginger soup. Here we go. So we're using onions and leeks and celery and ginger and garlic and a little pinch of kosher salt. And we're sauteing all of that in the soup pan, and let those aromatics really soften a good 8 to 10 minutes. Add in some salt, then add in your carrots. So you just need to cut those carrots in like 1/4-inch slices, and then bring that to a boil along with the vegetable broth and a little bit of orange juice. And that adds a little sweetness. If you had sweet carrots, I think that you could do away with the orange, but if you like that orange flavor, go for it. I think taste the carrots before you make this soup, or figure out your strategy for sweetening it up, because there's nothing more dull than an unsweet carrot. So you just cook that along with all those aromatics. Cook the carrots in the vegetable broth until they're all very soft, and in 20 minutes maybe take it off the heat. And it says let it cool, and that's so that to prevent dangerous things from happening in your blender. When you do things in your blender that are hot, don't go below or don't go above the, maybe 1/3 of the way or a little bit more. It builds up pressure. The other thing you can do is just place a towel over the top, which is what I will try to remember to do, and then hold it down. So. All right, so our corn soup is I'm going to call it finished. You might decide that you would want to keep it going a little bit longer. For the sake of this class, I'm going to just, and I'm going to just maybe puree some of it so that you can see how it strains out. Let me do something here. I'm going to change my camera angle here so you can see better. Okay. Anyway, it's pretty brothy right now. And I'm going to try to move this camera up a little bit. Maneuver things. I haven't done this before, this particular maneuver before, so bear with me. Okay. Going to add a little more. Trying to get the right camera angle here. Oh, well, you're working it. Okay. Now, see if you can see this as it pours out. So at first you think, oh, this isn't going to make much soup. It's not hardly anything's dripping out. But just I bounce it around a little bit. I get a spoon, or maybe this ladle is fine. So I can take it around like this. Keep in mind, all you're getting rid of here are the corn shells. So the good stuff's going down into the soup. You get a spoon. Now, this is a cream of. This is not necessarily super, super thick. It's not a chowder. It's a cream of soup. So it's going to be, it'll change up a little bit because I don't know if I have equal proportions of corn and broth. I only did the one batch. But then what we would do is stir the rest of the corn in, return it to the pan, stir the rest of the corn in, and we'd be ready to go. I'll go ahead and check my time here. It's 3:54, so. Yeah, there's a lot more corn in there. So what I've done is I put the asparagus soup together with put the spinach in with the asparagus soup, and I'm going to let that wilt. And then what's going to happen after you're already finished with this class is I'm going to add those 2 cups of broth to it and let it cook down and do the same thing as I did with this corn soup. Put it through the blender and then put it through the strainer. So if you had some fibrous ends on your asparagus, you wouldn't have to worry about that because you'd be straining those out. Questions or thoughts as you're watching this? A little bit hard to see, but you can see that the bowl's filling up. Does anybody feel like that this is like wasting corn? You might feel that way until you eat this soup.
Yeah.
So I
It's
can
hard
now.
to digest those skins.
What's that?
It's hard digesting those skins.
Right, that's another good reason to do that. Exactly. So now what I have is this nice creamy soup in here, and I believe I'm just going to stir those kernels back in. Let me make sure I haven't missed a step. Stir it, serve it, stir in the reserved ½ cup, season with salt and pepper, and you can serve this either hot or cold, which is the other reason I really like it. It's delicious. And you can garnish it with a little bit of parsley, I think would be nice. Hard to see, I know. It's amazing how greens wilt down, isn't it? How shrunk that spinach gets. So I'm going to let you off the hook now and get back here to our shared screen so we can wrap up. Okay. So is anybody making soup for supper tonight?
Not tonight.
Not tonight. Do any of these look like recipes you might try?
I think the carrots.
The carrot soup
And
I
the
love-
broccoli.
and the broccoli. Okay. Let me get back here. There. So I tried to cover a lot. I probably tried to cover too much, but I like to share as many recipes as I can. And please let me know if you try them. Take a picture, send it to me, debtheguide@getsetup.io, and we'll talk about it more. Or if you have your own recipes you want to send in, we can have a favorite soup recipe day if you'd like to do that and just share soups. My next classes, I have one tonight at 5:30, Great Spring Meals in 30 minutes. I'm going to make a Jamaican jerk chicken, Jamaican shrimp and rice bowl is what I'm making. And tomorrow I have healthy meals on a budget. Wednesday, I'll be making meringue, and we'll do Let's Talk Cooking and Food, open forum kind of thing on Thursday. But there's, of course, many more classes, and you can find those on the schedule. You can always type my name in to see what other classes I'm teaching. You can do that with any other guide as well. So I'll send out the email with the recipes. Mary Lou, make sure that you check with help if you don't get those, and check the schedule to see what else is going on. You can always type in the name of the class or the name of the guide and get a list of things that are happening. So Norman has Good Morning America tomorrow morning. If you've never been in Good Morning America, you might enjoy that. And he's also a great person to be talking with if you're ever interested in running your own interest group. So just something a little different for you. Give me some feedback on this class and on the strawberry class if you were in that, whatever classes you're in. We always appreciate your feedback. And as always, invite a friend if you want to come along with you to a class. That would be great. There are all sorts of places on the website and on your phone where you can invite your friend. And if you would like to host an interest group, suggest a new class, or hook us up with maybe a community organization, just pass on the information and we'll take care of the rest. So that ends our session for today. And I want to thank you for coming. Yes.
Can I ask you, do you have any idea why there is so much sodium in canned soup?
They do that for, it's a part of the preserving process.
Okay.
Some of it's seasonings, but a lot of it's the nature of the preservation. So, yeah.
It's awful.
Yeah, it is. They have made lower sodium versions, but they also know that, if you put salt in something, it tastes better. So they add a lot for that reason. If we don't add it until the end or, sparingly throughout what we're making, we're so much better off, and it still tastes good.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing to avoid. Thanks for asking. I'm just check the chat real quickly here. Did I miss anything? Doesn't look like it. Looks like Michael was putting some things. Enjoying your first class. Thanks, Veronica. Are you still there? I think she might have left. Okay. All right. Well, thanks, ladies, for coming. I really appreciate it. Have a great evening. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.